together, both Devontae Adams and Garrett Wilson had huge nights. Aaron Rodgers loves the two big targets, and he says if this is going to happen, going to be very tough on the defense to decide who they want to go after.
Adams and this kid, Wilson, I won't deny what they can do, but nobody else does jack.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
My grandma Bear, who owns the football team, probably comes in, gives a little, oh, man, you're such a good little boy out there. Congratulations, the way you coach this football team. I'm never going to fire you.
Totally, I missed you. Pinching your own cheek? As I was looking down and did not know we were getting...
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there with that guy named Ben. Like, that's what your grandma would do to you when you go see her on Thanksgiving or Christmas,
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on Sports.
Welcome to NewsWire. I'm Mike Blewitt in for Craig Mish today. Excited to have you here on SportsGrid, catching up with all the news as the show states. So a lot of action, obviously, per usual, and we recap last night's Monday Night Football matchup in the Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh taking on John Harbaugh, and the big brother John gets the victory going on the road and defeating Jim's Chargers. Really competitive game throughout, but Lamar Jackson and the Ravens get it done. A lot big explosive plays. Justice Hill, Derrick Henry, Lamar being Lamar, and throwing a couple of key touchdown passes to Bateman and to Mark Andrews with a really spectacular catch in the end zone. Here's the comments from John Harbaugh on getting the victory on the road in L.A.
You kind of live these things close to your heart, and these are just huge battles every week in this league. And going against a team that's this well coached by all their coaches and by my brother Jim, best coach in the National Football League, what he's done with that team and how hard they play and what they did. Hats off to them, because they're going to win a lot more football games this year, and they're going to be a major factor in the playoffs. So this is a big win for our guys. I'm proud of our guys. I'm proud of the way they came out and responded. After the first 10 points, we're down 10-0, and our guys step up. I think they had 2 field goals until the last drive on defense, and our offense had 5 or 6 scoring drives right in a row there to make a difference. So that's what I appreciate about our guys. They really don't flinch. They keep fighting. They got locked in on some details, and they played really good winning football. So proud of them for that. Now we have a quick turnaround. We got to get back about 6:30 in the morning and get to work on a very good Eagles team.
So the Ravens pulled to 8 victories, just a half game behind the Steelers in the AFC North by way of them not having yet had their bye. Big matchups this week as the Steelers take on the Bengals, and the Ravens will face the Philadelphia Eagles before their bye. So John used to coach in Philadelphia, so it'll be a homecoming of sorts for him playing the Eagles there in Baltimore. But AFC North still yet to be decided. Those teams with 8 wins. Steelers have the victory over the Ravens, but they will play again later on this season. They're firmly in the playoff mix. Are the Chargers still in the playoff mix? Clearly so, even though they fall 3 games behind the Chiefs with this loss. Here's Jim Harbaugh commenting on the loss last evening.
We'll regroup, and they played better football than we did tonight. But more importantly, we know what kind of team we are and what we're capable of, and regroup.
Coach, is there any news on JK?
No, I don't have any update. I know it's a knee.
What did your brother tell you after the game when you guys met up?
I always said the same thing. Congratulated him on the victory, and man, love you.
Do you feel like John was maybe a little bit extra aggressive tonight, going for that 4th and 1, and then that 2-point conversion, trying to make it a 2-score game? Did you see any extra aggressiveness out of him tonight?
I thought they did a great job in 3rd down and 4th downs. Without a doubt. I mean, 3 for 3 on 4th down. They did a great job on 3rd down as well, over 55%.
So a big victory there for the Ravens. They run for 212 yards. Derrick Henry, 140 on the ground. Justice Hill, an explosive 51-yard touchdown. Zay Flowers, 62 yards receiving. Mark Andrews and Bateman with those touchdowns, as I mentioned. J.K. Dobbins had to leave the game at some point. I think we'll all be tracking his injury news for those of you playing in fantasy leagues and wondering what the Chargers' outlook looks like for the rest of the year. Dobbins had 6 carries for 40 yards. Ladd McConkey, 6 for 83. It's clear in watching the Chargers they need a little bit more help from pass catchers. I'm sure that will be addressed long term for Justin Herbert, but still a team very much in the playoff mix. We'll talk about the NFL in more detail with Jacob Camenker in about 25 minutes. So other NFL news, Demarcus Robinson, the Rams receiver, had caught a touchdown pass in Sunday Night Football. He was arrested for traveling more than 100 miles an hour on the US 101 northbound and suspected of being under the influence as well. So trouble ahead for Demarcus Robinson. We'll see how the Rams and the NFL handle that. Secondarily, Jamison Williams will not face charges after review. He had an October 8th traffic stop in Wayne County in Michigan, and all the charges that were stemming from that traffic stop will be dropped, as they have found no evidence of him violating any statutes or warrants. Patriots' Jabril Peppers, who has been on the commissioner's exempt list for some period of time for very serious charges, including strangulation and drug possession, was removed from that commissioner exempt list, and it is up to the Patriots to decide what they want to do next with him. Does he become part of the active roster? It will not be impacted by league sanctioning from here forward. And a quote here, "We understand the league's investigation into the matter will continue, as will the legal process. We will await the outcome of both before making any further comment." So it sounds like the Patriots are going to take a wait-and-see approach. The jury trial is scheduled for January 22nd. At a pretrial hearing in Quincy, Massachusetts. Moving on off the gridiron and on to the basketball court. Huge games yesterday. There are over 60 college basketball games today, so there is a lot for you to watch and learn about teams early on in the season, and plenty, obviously, to wager on. Auburn comes back in the second half to beat number 4 Auburn. Has a huge second half comeback to beat number 5 Iowa State and hits a shot with a second left to grab the victory 83-81. Memphis pulls off an upset of number 2 UConn. They win 99-97 in overtime. They were winning this game by 10 points with 3 minutes left, blow the entire lead, then come back and get the victory in overtime. A massive win for Penny Hardaway and the Memphis Tigers. Dayton had an 18-point halftime lead over North Carolina, and Carolina comes all the way back to win 92-90, their second consecutive game in which they've come back from 18 or more down. We'll have more on that from Hubert Davis a little bit later. And Feast Week rolls on. Like I said, 60 games today, plenty more action. We've got some interesting windows a little bit later this week. Arkansas and Illinois take on each other in Kansas City after that Bears-Lions game. So CBS racking up huge hoping to rack up huge ratings with that college basketball contest. A lot of NBA action. The NBA Cup rolls on tonight, 5 games. The Knicks blew out the Nuggets last night, 145-118. Brooklyn gets a victory in Golden State, 128-120 as 11.5-point underdogs. The Raptors moved to 4-14 as the Pistons dropped them 102-100. A Jaden Ivey buzzer beater, the deciding shot there, and the Celtics hammer the Clippers 126-94. Moving on back to the gridiron and the college side. Obviously, the rankings are going to come out tonight. We'll talk with Bill Bender in just about 3 minutes on those topics. But big news just came right before this show started, and North Carolina has decided to move on from Mac Brown. They play NC State this week. That will be his final game as North Carolina head coach. His second stint in Chapel Hill. He had a quote earlier, and his statement is, while this was not the perfect time and way in which I imagined going out, no time will ever be the perfect time. I've spent 16 seasons at North Carolina and will always cherish the memories and relationships Sally and I have built while serving as head coach. So he's obviously sad to be moving on, but North Carolina, unfortunately, blown out by Boston College on Saturday. That drops them to 6-5 on the season and 3-4 in conference. When we come back, like I said, we'll have Bill Bender from the Sporting News. We'll go over his top 14 and see what he thinks the rankings will look like. We've got some action tonight where Toledo is an 8.5-point road favorite in Akron with a total of 48. The Buffalo Bulls are 22.5-point home favorites against Kent State. Lots of college action today. We'll talk about some of it with Bill Bender.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With 2 former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
We live in a society right now where everybody's a snowflake, everybody's a cupcake, and everybody thinks that nothing is fair. Everything is like, it's not fair. We should have a better chance. We need more. You know what? I'm old enough to remember when you needed to have a perfect goddamn record to win a college football championship. That's the way it was. 11-1, too bad.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
Grandma Bear, who owns the football team, probably comes in, gives a little, oh, man, you're such a good little boy out there. Congratulations, the way you coach this football team. I'm never going to fire you.
Totally, I missed you. Pinching your own cheek? As I was looking down and did not know we were getting...
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there with that guy named Ben. Like, that's what your grandma would do to you when you go see her on Thanksgiving or Christmas,
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Together, both Davante Adams and Garrett Wilson had huge nights. Aaron Rodgers loves the 2 big targets, and he says if this is going to happen, going to be very tough on the defense to decide who they want to go after.
Adams and this kid, Wilson, I won't deny what they can do, but nobody else does jack.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Back on the grid with NewsWire. I'd love to talk to this gentleman, Bill Bender. You find him on X at BillBender92. He had an opportunity to go and watch Ohio State handle Indiana on Saturday. You're going to watch Ohio State again this week, Bill. But that is really the story. Is we needed proving ground for Indiana given their soft schedule. They walk into Columbus first half. You're like, okay, it's not ending well for them, but it's only 14-7, and the second half was a different story.
I went in with a preconceived notion of that game, and then I left. So I thought Ohio State would do what they did. I thought they would dominate the game, and I thought Indiana would look like they did against a much better team. But my takeaway afterward was this, that Ohio State's probably national championship caliber. And the fact that they made a show of putting Indiana away probably shows that the Hoosiers have arrived a little bit. And Curt Cignetti afterward was very complimentary of Ohio State and very matter of fact about where his team stands. They are a playoff team, mainly because some other teams lost and they have some work to do. The biggest thing that stood out in that game, Indiana scores on the opening drive. Their next 17 plays in the half went for -3 yards. The Buckeyes have a national championship defense, and the top 3 teams in the country on defense are Ohio State, Notre Dame, and Texas. If I was betting on a national championship team right now, I'd probably pick one of those 3 teams.
Yeah, to your point, here are the Indiana drives after that touchdown drive. They had 6 plays, 8 yards, 3 plays, -7 yards, 3 plays, -4 yards, the end of the half, then the punt return touchdown, and then 2 plays for 6 yards. So after that touchdown drive, it got rough for Indiana. And to your point, Ohio State's defense had a lot to do with it. Let's move over to a surprise outcome. I don't know that you and I watch a lot of college football that were that stunned that Jalen Milroe had a game like this, but to get dominated in the fashion that they did versus Oklahoma is an eye-opener for anybody that's watched Alabama for the last 15 years.
And I'm trying to come to terms with it in multiple ways. One, Oklahoma is a tough place to play. It is. They're 26-5 there since 2020. It's not like they lose there often, but the shock value was how bad Alabama looked there. Ill-prepared, 3 interceptions. Jalen Milroe, a non-factor in the running game. We knew Oklahoma's defense was tough. Yeah, there was a bad call on the touchdown pass to Ryan Williams, but are we really making excuses for the whole game based on that? So what's the next step? It's trying to talk Alabama into the playoff. Yeah, they have some strength of victory, but at what point are we going to hold teams accountable for 3 losses? One thing that could pop up in the next 2 weeks is, let's say Miami loses the ACC championship game. I'll just ask you, Miami with 2 losses, Alabama with 3 losses, who are you putting in that 11 seed?
Oh, man. This is the conundrum. We have teams, I would say teams 7 through 12 are rough to figure out. You and I can agree on the first 6, even if we move some things around. You start talking 7 through 12, I think it gets really difficult as to who you want to keep in there. So let's go to your rankings. You have the top 14. Ole Miss finds themselves out after a loss against Florida, in which Jackson Dart threw a couple of really rough interceptions. Ole Miss, I think you and I both agree, is a good team, but they've dropped too many games at this point, even though Florida is playing like one of the best teams in the country at the moment. You have Oregon, Ohio State, Texas as your top 3, and I'll let you take it from there. Why Penn State, Notre Dame, Miami, Georgia? That's where it starts to get a little funky as you start to rank them.
Yeah, that top 7, I think you're going to find the national champion on that side right there. Notre Dame is really trending upward. I don't even think about the Northern Illinois loss anymore. I think about how they've looked the last 5 weeks, dominant on both sides. Jeremiah Love is emerging as a superstar running back in the game, too, the way they handled Army. Georgia's the interesting one for me because, their A game is national championship caliber. Their bad game is really bad. When they're turning the ball over, they could get knocked out in the first round, but they are one of those schools equipped to make that run. So you'll find the national champion, 6 of those 7 teams. I wouldn't include Miami as a serious national title contender, although I love their offense, and they have the one quarterback among that top half that is a true difference maker. Cam Ward can carry a team maybe to a playoff victory or 2, but Cam Ward doesn't play defense and special teams and everywhere else. You know what I mean? So I think that Miami team might have some trouble getting in if they lose another game.
Yeah, all right. So the back half, important here. You have Indiana, Tennessee, SMU, Boise State, Arizona State, who's really played themselves into it. Iowa State and BYU on the outside looking in, and A&M is obviously out of the mix now as well after dropping that game to Auburn. You have Indiana firmly in. Do you feel like as the rankings come out tonight that they'll be a little bit more tenuous than you having them in by a few spots?
They might be down a spot or two, but I mean, they are in based on Ole Miss having that third loss and Alabama having that third loss. And, this allows the committee to keep Indiana in and put Tennessee in with 2 losses. And they can seed them that way and say, see, look, we were fair. And I think they will do that. The Big 12 is very interesting to me. And the other placement is Boise State, as of tonight, will probably have a first-round bye. They will be placed ahead of whoever the projected Big 12 champion is. But I think once that Big 12 team wins the Big 12 championship, they'll go right ahead of Boise State. Because Boise State, let's be honest, they've struggled the last couple of weeks. They barely beat Wyoming in Week 13.
Yeah, agree with you. So anybody that's on the outside looking in on your list that you think is a real challenger to make a move here?
Well, Alabama's one, and then Clemson has this unique scenario where they could lose to South Carolina, and if Miami loses to Syracuse, Clemson could backdoor into the ACC championship game. SMU-Clemson would be a pretty good game. So keep an eye on the Tigers and Dabo of all teams.
Yeah, agreed. I think that perception can become reality for people, and the opening weekend blowout versus Georgia changed people's perception of Clemson permanently, which isn't really fair. Beating South Carolina would be, I think, would change some perception. That's a team with a few losses that is a lot better than their record looks. Thank you to Bill Bender, as always. We'll see you on the other side.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With 2 former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
We live in a society right now where everybody's a snowflake, everybody's a cupcake, and everybody thinks that nothing is fair. Everything is like, it's not fair. We should have a better chance. We need more. You know what? I'm old enough to remember when you needed to have a perfect goddamn record to win a college football championship. That's the way it was. 11-1, too bad.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
Grandma Bear, who owns the football team, probably comes in, gives a little, oh, man, you're such a good little boy out there. Congratulations. The way you coach this football team, I'm never going to fire you.
Totally, I missed you pinching your own cheek as I was looking down and did not know we were getting.
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there with that guy named Ben. Like, that's what your grandma would do to you when you go see her on Thanksgiving or Christmas,
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Together, both Davante Adams and Garrett Wilson had huge nights. Aaron Rodgers loves the 2 big targets, and he says if this is going to happen, going to be very tough on the defense to decide who they want to go after.
Adams and this kid Wilson, I won't deny what they can do, but nobody else does jack.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
We're back. Thanks again to Bill Bender. College football, fascinating this time of year. As always, the college football playoff adds some juice to it that it's never had before. I think you'll find that there's still a long way to go at the end of college football seasons. We start slotting everybody in automatically, but as you saw on Saturday night, 3 big upsets in the SEC alone put us in this position where teams are maybe firmly in, like Indiana, that we thought might actually be out. But here's Ben Stevens with the sound off to preview the 120th version of the game.
Not just a game, but the game. One of the best rivalries in all of college football and sports. It's Ohio State and Michigan inside the shoe on Saturday afternoon. The Buckeyes looking to snap a 3-game skid against their bitter rivals in the Wolverines. It is the longest losing streak for Ohio State at the hands of the Maize and Blue since the mid to late 90s. And Ohio State expected to win the game rather comfortably. The Buckeyes a 20.5-point favorite. It's the largest spread we've seen in the game since 2014, now a decade ago. The Wolverines will be an underdog for the 6th time this season. In the 3 years that they beat Ohio State each and every season, only a dog 4 times in total. There is so much at stake in Columbus on Saturday. Mike Blewitt, back to you.
Thank you, Ben Stevens. Happy Thanksgiving to him. That game right now, Ohio State installed in Columbus as 20.5-point favorites with a total of just 43.5. Obviously, Michigan's season not what they had hoped for. We're going to move it over to the hardwood, where yesterday, as I stated earlier, UConn comes back trailing 10 late in the game, ties it, pushes it to overtime, takes a lead, and then loses late. Here's Danny Hurley sounding off.
But I had a lot of issues with what went on out there in the game. That over the back call at that point of the game, there was no attempt to block out. There was a player on Memphis that made a half-ass effort to rebound that basketball, and Liam McNeely high-pointed that rebound. For that call to be made at that point of the game was a complete joke. All right, and then for me, I don't know what happened. I might have lost my balance by the absurdity of the call, or maybe I tripped. But if I made that call at that point, I would have ignored the fact that I was on my back. If I made that call, I would have ignored that. I would have ignored that. That was a major, obviously a major. How you could call that while that game was going on, the way that game was going on, is just beyond me. But I know, I've never seen the one ref before. I didn't even know he was a college ref. And then, I'm familiar with the other two, so I'm not surprised.
Salty Dan Hurley ends the nation's longest win streak. I think UConn's going to be fine, but Tyrese Hunter from Memphis, 7 of 10 from 3, dropping 26 on the defending national champs. I'm sure Danny will get over it before the holidays, but they take on Colorado today. I would not want to be Colorado catching 15 points. The games in Maui were fantastic yesterday, and you'll get more of that today. And finally, we go over to Hubert Davis, who involved in another huge comeback with his North Carolina Tar Heels.
To be able to give them an example of there's a lot of time to be able to come back. It's not a situation where we've got to come back from 21 in 2 possessions, just a possession at a time. Actually, the first 4 minutes of the second half, they came to the bench, and I told them they're not making comeback plays. I said, you're just not. You're not getting the rebounds, you're not getting defensive stops, you're not getting through screens, you're not getting loose balls, you're not taking the ball strong to the hoop, you're not dunking when you get around the basket. It's just not making those plays. And I said, if you would change that, this game would flip. And they were able to do that against a really good Dayton team. And I also told them, this isn't sustainable. You can't do this every game. It's just not. And that's going to be one of the major steps with this team is, can they play with the sense of urgency on both ends of the floor? Can they start there, and can they stay there for a full 40 minutes?
North Carolina moves to 4-1 on the season. They're only lost to number 1 Kansas by 3. They take on another ranked opponent today in Auburn, where they are 4.5-point underdogs, total 165.5 in that game. So I think Hubert's right. It's tough to do it every game, but impressive that they're able to do it. We'll be impressed by Camenker next.
sharpest football contest show in the land. The Las Vegas Football Contest Show focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With two former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
We live in a society right now where everybody's a snowflake, everybody's a cupcake, and everybody thinks that nothing is fair. Everything is like, it's not fair. We should have a better chance. We need more. You know what? I'm old enough to remember when you needed to have a perfect goddamn record to win a college football championship. That's the way it was. 11-1, too bad.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
Grandma Bear, who owns the football team, probably comes in, gives a little, oh, man, you're such a good little boy out there. Congratulations, the way you coach this football team. I'm never going to fire you.
Told me I missed you. You picked your own cheek? As I was looking down and did not know we were getting...
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there with that guy named Ben. Like, that's what your grandma will do to you when you go see her on Thanksgiving or Christmas,
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Together, both Davante Adams and Garrett Wilson had huge nights. Aaron Rodgers loves the two big targets, and he says if this is going to happen, going to be very tough on the defense to decide who they want to go after.
Adams and this kid Wilson, I won't deny what they can do, but nobody else does jack.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
On NewsWire, we welcome in Jacob Camenker of USA Today, talking NFL action, and we closed out Week 12 last night. Jacob, in L.A. with the Horror Bowl, Jim and John taking each other on. Competitive game in the first half. I think the Ravens really showed the power of their rushing attack, 212 on the ground last night, and even against a presumed playoff team like the Chargers, the Ravens can lean on you with some explosive plays.
Absolutely. And I think you just look at the powerful duo of Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, because Lamar got off to one of the slowest starts in this game that we've seen all season. He was missing his receivers high. I think he was 2 of 6 for 8 yards for most of the first half. But then he kind of woke up with that 40-yard touchdown pass downfield to Rashad Bateman. And from there, the Ravens offense started to click. Derrick Henry was having a solid game. And then in the second half, as the Chargers defense wore down, he continued to improve and racked up 140 yards. And Lamar Jackson was super efficient after that slow start and showed a little bit more with his legs than he's shown in recent weeks. He hasn't been running as much and hasn't been running for the same rushing totals, but he picked his spots. And it was just a good way to stress this Chargers defense, which has been great this year for the most part. But now, the last 2 weeks, having played Joe Burrow and the Bengals and Lamar Jackson and the Ravens, they're getting tests from more playoff caliber teams. And we're sort of seeing that the Chargers still have some holes on this team. I think they're still a worthy playoff team. But as you said, the Ravens, they're still pretty far ahead of them, I would say, and now have the advantage in the wild card race and are right back in the AFC North race as well.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there. Clearly, look, I think the Chargers, this is a great season for them to be able to transition into Harbaugh and Greg Roman and figure out what they do best, but they don't have enough weapons. Ladd McConkey as the leading receiver is not enough explosiveness for him. But back to your point about Lamar. He's 16 of 22, 177, 2 touchdowns. He only runs for 15 yards, but one of those rushes was a touchdown. And you're right, they get going when he has the explosive plays. If you compare just the Steelers game to the Chargers game, the Steelers, the reason that they have success typically with the Ravens is they don't allow those explosive plays. He can't get on a roll. And while the first half is a little bit slow, first quarter for him was a little bit slower, the touchdown pass, the rushing touchdown, then they get an explosive play from Henry, an explosive play from Hill, and then the wheels come off if you're the Chargers. So limiting those explosive plays, I think, is key number one for people playing the Ravens, which is a very difficult task, but it's tantamount to try to get a victory.
Definitely. And you see that often in the NFL right now. That's why that 2 shell coverage with the 2 deep safeties is so popular. And it's something that the Chargers have utilized because teams are willing to say, hey, we'll let you run the ball at 5 yards a pop and maybe rip off the occasional 15-yarder, but we're not going to let you get these big explosive passing plays. And, you know, most teams just aren't built for these big running plays. We see it with the Eagles and the Ravens because they have great running backs and, in the Eagles' case, a terrific offensive line. But I think you're going to see defenses like the Chargers sort of struggle to fully contain those big explosive plays, whereas the Steelers, as you referenced, they have the pass rush needed to kind of contain Lamar Jackson, and their back seven is a little bit better at this point than the Chargers. So I think it'll be interesting to see if Lamar Jackson, against those elite defenses in the postseason, can find a way to impact the game with those explosive plays. Because if those aren't there, then the Ravens offense becomes a little bit harder to just finally get into the end zone, as we saw in the first half of that game.
Yeah, good points there. I would say let's show the AFC wildcard standings to the folks at home. Ravens in front now at 8-4, Chargers at 7-4, Broncos 7-5, Miami 5-6, Colts at 5-7, and Bengals at 4-7. So that's teams that are still in the mix, still alive as far as we can tell, even though some of them, the pulse may be fading, particularly in Indianapolis. Do you think, I'll ask one more question on this before we turn the page over to Thursday. Do you think there's another level for the Chargers? We've talked about some of their limitations. Do you think there's any chance of them raising their level of play and perhaps knocking off someone in the playoffs?
I think it's possible. As long as you have Justin Herbert on your roster, the possibility exists. He's a very good quarterback, and we've seen him get more and more comfortable in this Jim Harbaugh, Greg Roman offense as the season has gone along. I think you hit the nail on the head that the weapons are kind of the concern right now. Ladd McConkey's their best option. Will Dissly's having a solid season at tight end, but outside of them,
really good.
Yeah, they have a lot of inconsistent weapons. Like Quentin Johnston had a bad game last night. Jalen Reagor has been kind of a hit or miss player throughout his entire NFL career. So they have some speed threats, but the consistency isn't there. So I think if everything comes together, sure, they can win a playoff game, but I think they're going to have to add some more talent on offense at the skill positions and in the defensive secondary a little bit too. They've done well adding some young, talented cornerbacks, but you know, the old adages with the young cornerbacks, they're more likely to get burnt and they'll develop as they go along. But there's going to be some growing pains on the defensive side there. So I think they can win a game, but I don't think they go on a Super Bowl run or anything this year.
All right, let's take a look at Thursday. We kick it off with the Bears at the Lions. Lions 9-2 against the number this year, but 10-1 overall. They've been incredible, dominating the Colts the other day. The Bears playing a little bit better. They don't get the victory the other day, but Caleb looking more sound. Do you think the Bears have a real chance to challenge the Lions on the fast track for the Lions at home?
I do. I think we saw this last year. The Bears were a tough matchup for the Lions in both of the games they played. They were able to get pressure on Jared Goff. Montez Sweat had some big games. So I know that this Lions offense is explosive, and I wouldn't rule out them scoring any amount of points, really. But with the way the Bears have played lately, with their switch at offensive coordinator and Keenan Allen and DJ Moore showing better chemistry with Caleb Williams these last 2 weeks, I think that this number is probably a little bit high. I think that the Bears can keep this one close, and if it's not close down the stretch, they might have a chance to get a backdoor cover. And we know Caleb Williams is capable of doing that. I know he's had some rough patches during his rookie year, but the talent is there. So I think this game's going to be closer than people expect. The Lions are looking to snap that Thanksgiving losing streak, so I think they do get the win. But hey, we thought last year the Lions were going to be able to blow out the Packers on Thanksgiving, and they ended up losing that game. So I'm not going to rule out anything in an NFC North matchup here.
I think it's fair. 5 straight losses for the Bears, though. Lions are typically a good first-half team. I'd lay the 6.5 in the first half for the Lions as opposed to maybe 10.5 or 11 for the game. All right, Giants take on the Dallas Cowboys. It can't look any worse than they did on Sunday, can they?
I don't think so, but I'm not sure. The Cowboys kind of surprised us against the Commanders, and now you've got on a short week Dallas with Micah Parsons, who can wreak some havoc, going up against Tommy DeVito, who just didn't really have much juice against the Buccaneers. The whole Giants team didn't have any juice, and I think it's worth wondering, is this a reaction to the players seeing Daniel Jones benched and knowing, hey, this guy was the team's best quarterback? This is clearly an organizational decision. They haven't been able to get the ball in Malik Nabers' hands consistently. So there's a lot to dislike about the direction of this Giants offense right now. And I think there's legitimate questions about Brian Daboll's job security. I know John Mara has said repeatedly that he doesn't want to move on from Daboll and really doesn't want to have another coach fired after the season. But hey, if they look bad on Thanksgiving, things are all of a sudden going to be on shakier footing there in New York.
You can't play like this and keep your job. It's just the reality. It's not his fault, but he can't play like this and keep your job. All right, you've got 30 seconds. Is Thursday night, Thanksgiving night, Dolphins traveling to Green Bay.
This is going to be a tough game for the Dolphins. They're on a hot streak, but Tua Tagovailoa is 0-7 in games where the temperature is less than 45 degrees. And I just don't know that I want to trust him in this Green Bay game where there's going to be freezing temperatures, and we don't know about the precipitation yet, Mike. We got to keep an eye on that weather, but if it's inclement, I'm going to be back in the Packers probably pretty heavily here.
Yeah, I think he's been operating the offense incredibly well in the last couple of games. I just don't know if it's going to be their night. Give me some Cooper Rush overs, though, on Thursday. How about that? Thank you, Jacob. Talk to you soon.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circa Sports Million, Circa Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With two former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
We live in a society right now where everybody's a snowflake, everybody's a cupcake, and everybody thinks that nothing is fair. Everything is like, it's not fair. We should have a better chance. We need more. You know what? I'm old enough to remember when you needed to have a perfect goddamn record to win a college football championship. That's the way it was. 11-1, too bad.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
Grandma Bear, who owns the football team, probably comes in, gives a little, oh, man, you're such a good little boy out there. Congratulations, the way you coach this football team. I'm never going to fire you.
Totally, I missed you pinching your own cheek as I was looking down and did not know we were getting.
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there with that guy named Ben. Like, that's what your grandma will do to you when you go see her on Thanksgiving or Christmas,
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Together, both Davante Adams and Garrett Wilson had huge nights. Aaron Rodgers loves the two big targets, and he says if this is going to happen, going to be very tough on the defense to decide who they want to go after.
Adams and this kid, Wilson, I won't deny what they can do, but nobody else does jack.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Stepping back in with Dexter Henry here. You can find him on SNY and NY Post Sports at NY Post Sports for all the latest news on the NBA. And we had some good news here in New York. My Knicks, hopefully your Knicks as well, pick up a huge victory, 145-118 over the Nuggets. Just a very dominant offensive performance. They started off the season somewhat sluggish, but it looks like they're kind of bringing everything together. 45 assists last night and only 10 turnovers, so very efficient offensively last night as well, Dexter.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that jumps out, right, Mike, for a lot of people. So 45 assists, 145 points, as you said, 10 turnovers, 45 assists, ties a franchise record. Knicks hadn't done that since 1979, so very impressive. But for me, when you look at how they came out against Utah on Saturday, they set the tone with defense in this game. You know, everybody will talk about the offense, but their defense was really solid. They showed more effort in the games the Knicks have won this year. The 10 that they've won, their defense has been good. In the 7 games that they've lost, their defense has been really, really bad. Their defensive rating has been anywhere between 139 and 151 in those losses. So it starts for them with defense. And I think this team, we know how good they can be offensively. Defensively, if they start trending in the right direction where they can get somewhere between the 10th and 15th best defensive team in the league, I think sky's the limit for the New York Knicks.
Knicks are the first NBA team since 1991 to have that kind of disparity, 45 assists to 10 turnovers, so very efficient. Anunoby, incredible last night, 40 points. He hit 5 threes. Anunoby's been getting to the rack very easily with the way that they're able to space the offense, but if he starts hitting threes, he's going to have an incredible offensive season.
Yeah, he's averaging right now over 21 points, and he's been incredibly efficient. And I think a lot of people, I won't say a lot of people, but some people question the contract the Knicks gave him, right? $220 million. Said, hey, you're paying a lot for this guy. He's probably going to be the 4th option on this team after they traded for Mikal Bridges. But he's been fantastic. It's the efficiency that really jumps out to me, Mike. You talked about his ability to get to the rack. OG Anunoby, not known by many as a shot creator, but he's had a little bit of that in his bag this year, and I think that's going to help the Knicks. If Brunson doesn't have it going, if Karl-Anthony Towns doesn't have it going, he's shown he could step up late in the shot clock, get some shots that are needed for the team, and he's stroking it well from 3. So you got to love what you've seen from OG right now.
Let's go all the way over to the West Coast where the Thunder blow out the Kings. They move to 13-4 on the season, dropping the Kings to 8-10. Some big numbers out of SGA, dropping 37. Jalen Williams with 28. Another dominant performance for the Thunder. So as much as we could talk about them and give them their props, the Kings are a team that we might have had some expectation for, and now is it the same old Kings? 44.5 is their adjusted win total. They're still expected to make the playoffs, but they're going to be in a play-in situation, so perhaps the Kings' expectations are starting to throttle down a little bit.
Yeah, I wonder if their expectations are starting to throttle down a lot because the West we knew was going to be tough, but the East also hasn't been as good as a lot of people have thought they would be. The issue for the Kings is they can score points. We see that. They can score points for sure, but when they play good two-way teams like the Thunder, and the Kings just really haven't been able to elevate their defense. They've been trying to since Mike Brown got there. That's been the issue. I think for them to take that leap where you want to see them in that maybe 45 to 48 win range, they're going to have to see an improvement on defense to solidify themselves as a playoff team. Because as you mentioned right now, Mike, they're squarely in the play-in. I know it's still very early, but in order for the Kings to make that leap, I think they have to get a lot better on defense.
So we have 5 games tonight, all NBA Cup games, and the Suns are getting some good news. According to Shams Charania, both Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal will return to the lineup against the Lakers tonight in Phoenix.
Yeah, they'll return, and that's just huge for the Suns. They've been missing these guys. They both have been out with hamstring injuries, and this offense definitely needs a boost. They've struggled without both of them. They've been tremendous with Durant in the lineup, 9-1 this season with when Kevin Durant plays. So this is huge for the Suns as they want to get back on track. They were playing really good basketball before both of those guys got hurt. Now, if you're looking at this game, I would say maybe be a little bit patient in wanting to take the Suns. I know they're 3-point favorites at home. However, acclimating guys back into a rotation always isn't easy, and you got to want to see how much minutes they get, particularly Bradley Beal. So I might watch it there. I think it's a good spot for the Lakers. The Lakers have been playing decently well through this first part of the season. Anthony Davis has been tremendous. I would look for him to have a big game in this one. So I like the Lakers in this one and a big game from AD.
So just a general question to you about the NBA Cup. I'm just curious your thoughts on this. It's obviously a nice way to attract viewership and increase interest in these games. How much do you think teams and or players prioritize the NBA Cup games?
Prioritize is an interesting word there, right, Mike? Do I think that they care more about them, and did it add some juice to last season we saw? Yeah, one of my things with the NBA Cup was I love the idea, but for me it was, will the players actually care about this, right? And we saw
exactly.
players care, because we saw it on the last day of the Cup season last year. Teams were going hard. They were trying to play for that point differential. So I think they care. I don't know if in terms of prioritizing it, in terms of will they play in that as opposed to another game, that I'm not 100% sure of yet, but I definitely think the guys do care and put effort into it. And look, it's a chance to win something else, another trophy. It's not the Larry O'Brien trophy, but it is something else that you could win.
I appreciate that perspective, because you see the Suns bringing both of these guys back. You wonder if they prioritize it a little bit more. Okay. Any thoughts on any of the other games tonight? We only got about 30 seconds, but you got the Bucks taking on the Heat, and I think the Bucks are a team that, if you're a Bucks fan, you're probably feeling a little bit uneasy about the way things are going right now.
Yeah, you have, right? But I think you got to like the way things have looked a little bit as of late. They've gotten back into it. They're not in the situation that Philadelphia is in. Giannis is playing all world. They need other guys to step up. That's the thing. Can they get healthy enough? Can Chris Middleton come back and be good for them? Can we start to see some synergy between Dame and Giannis? That's something we haven't seen, Mike, really get together for them within the last 2 years. So I think if you're a Bucks fan, it could be a lot worse. You're not feeling so great, but it could be worse, and it does seem to be getting better in the last 5 to 6 games.
Great stuff from Dexter Henry. The Bucks have won 4 in a row and 7 of the last 10. So a little better the last couple of weeks. Thank you, Dexter. Have a happy Thanksgiving.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With 2 former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
We live in a society right now where everybody's a snowflake, everybody's a cupcake, and everybody thinks that nothing is fair. Everything is like, it's not fair. We should have a better chance. We need more. You know what? I'm old enough to remember when you needed to have a perfect goddamn record to win a college football championship. That's the way it was. 11-1, too bad.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
Grandma Bear, who owns the football team, probably comes in, gives a little, oh, man, you're such a good little boy out there. Congratulations, the way you coach this football team. I'm never going to fire you.
Totally, I missed you pinching your own cheek as I was looking down and did not know we were getting.
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there with that guy named Ben. Like, that's what your grandma would do to you when you go see her on Thanksgiving or Christmas,
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Together, both Davante Adams and Garrett Wilson had huge nights. Aaron Rodgers loves the 2 big targets, and he says if this is going to happen, going to be very tough on the defense to decide who they want to go after.
Adams and this kid Wilson, I won't deny what they can do, but nobody else does jack.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
All right, a lot of news today. Thank you to Frank Bartunek and Luke Kane and Steve Armato for helping me deliver all of that. Great stuff by them today. And to our guest, Dexter Henry, who just talked with us about the NBA, Jacob Camenker on the NFL, and Bill Bender on college football. Lots of sports to watch while you're sitting at home during this holiday week. I hope you enjoy all of it. Enjoy us as a first screen or second screen experience, we love having you here on SportsGrid. But before we go, let's talk about our last licks. So we had the Harb Bowl last night in L.A. Jim and John taking each other on. But Jackie and Jack Harbaugh did not attend the game last night because they were celebrating their anniversary, their 63rd wedding anniversary, to be precise. Happy anniversary to them. It aligns with my parents' wedding anniversary, so happy anniversary to them. Their 60th wedding anniversary will be on Thanksgiving Day, so shout out to my Mom and Dad, and respectfully to John and Jim. I hope you don't mind that your parents were celebrating without you. Jack, just 85 years young. Let's go to topic number 2, and that's Juan Soto. The Juan Soto sweepstakes heating up. It looks like he's got offers. This is courtesy of Randy Miller. Offers from 5 teams: the Red Sox, the Dodgers, the Mets, the Yankees, and the Blue Jays. Will he go international? Will he stay here in New York and just move across town? Will he stay where he's at? I'm a Yankees fan, so I know what I'm hoping for. And if the Dodgers get him, I think most sports fans will be pretty sick about it. We'll see if the Sox have a chance. I think we won't know until the numbers start to come out who put down the biggest offer. So Juan Soto sweepstakes heating up. Who knows exactly when that decision will be made. And then finally, Jerry Jones. I really don't know why he keeps going on the radio and talking, but according to John Machada, Cowboys owner Jerry Jones was on 105.3 The Fan, said he's not ruling out a contract extension for head coach Mike McCarthy. Quote, I don't think that's crazy at all. This is a Super Bowl winning coach. Mike McCarthy has been there and done that. He has great ideas. We got a lot of football left. I'll tell you what, that is not a ringing endorsement. I don't know why he said it, but that is not a ringing endorsement. Because somebody's been there and done that doesn't mean anything. He's been a coach for a long time. I think Mike McCarthy once had a reputation of being an excellent offensive head coach. I don't know that that reputation still exists in the same manner that it used to, but it's clear that the Cowboys are struggling. Good performance out of Cooper Rush on Sunday. I think the Commanders are flailing a little bit. It'd be nice if they had a kicker that hit some extra points, but that's sort of where they find themselves. The Cowboys have done very little over the last 2 off seasons other than pay some of the guys that they have there. I appreciate the fact that they kept Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb, but they've watched a lot of guys leave. This is the last 2 off seasons. They barely added anybody at all. So I think it's going to be a rough road ahead for Cowboys fans. They're 4-7 right now. We all know that Dak isn't coming back. Their games coming up for the remainder of the season. They have the Giants this week, a very winnable game. Then they host the Bengals, a dangerous team with the same record as them at 4-7. They go to Carolina, winnable. They host Tampa, a team that's been pretty spicy the last few weeks in particular, blowing out the Giants on Sunday. They're at Philly, and then they host Washington. So while there's some wins on there, I think we'd all agree this is not a playoff team. They're not playing like it, and they don't have the roster to match it right now. They can't run the ball, which is why I made the mention of the Cooper Rush overs to Jacob Camenker early. Over 204.5, over a half a touchdown. You can get that parlay at plus money. I'm not a huge parlay recommendation person, but something like that, I think they'll be tied together. I think they have an opportunity to run it up on the Giants. Do the Giants have any kind of juice left after what we saw on Sunday? I don't think it can be that bad every week. I think they were certainly reeling from the when the guy goes from a starter for 6 years to being released, I think you're allowed to give the players and the organization a little bit, now, not the organization, the players a little bit of grace and maybe not having their best performance. Guy was their starting quarterback on Sunday and got released by Friday afternoon or Saturday morning. So it's just really not the way to operate. We've got tough times in New York. As I sit here in our Studio 34 in Manhattan, we got tough times for NFL football here. Good thing I'm a Steelers fan. I'll be back with more tomorrow on NewsWire. Thanks everybody for watching.